And two, because Africa is the resource for the whole world. Well, what do I mean by that? The biggest resource in the 21st century is really not crude oil, it's people, it's intelligent people that can make things happen. While learning tech has been democratized, applying that skill to earn has not been democratized, meaning that the big tech still are not here. This is not where they are. The Silicon Valley is not yet here, even though they employ people remotely in Nsuka village, in Orandamoda and Zamfara state, if you have the skills, but we don't have that infrastructure.
Today we will be interviewing Dr. Arowolo Ayoola, who is a co-founder and lead of Data Lead Africa, a dedicated diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. Dr. Ayoola founded the Deaf in Tech project, which promotes inclusivity in STEM and higher education for people with disabilities. He has led various high-impact projects, including consulting on Nigeria's National Economic Recovery Growth Plan and mentoring entrepreneurs across Africa. Let's get into it. Hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. I have with me here Dr. Arowolo Ayoola. I hope I pronounced that perfectly.
Yeah, you did.
Perfect. So today we are just going to have a conversation, right? An interview, and speak with Dr. Ayoola about your experience within the technological space in Nigeria, particularly with regards to Data Lead Africa, which you are the co-founder and current lead of right now, and especially about Deaf in Tech, and then see how the experiences, the knowledge you've built within that time of building these different initiatives, what that tells us about Nigeria and Africa within the technological space that we are in and will be entering in the next decade or so. All right. So what I'll start with a simple question. If you could walk us through your journey of starting Data Lead Africa, how did that begin? And then how did we get into the place where we are in Deaf in Tech? And if you could give some context around what those are, just so that anyone who's watching this can understand what it is that you've built during this many years.
Thank you, Dumebi, for having me on your platform. And thank you. My name is Arowolo Ayoola, and Data Lead Africa, we started Data Lead Africa in 2016, registered with the government in 2017. And the journey began as an observable gap that we saw a gap in a skill gap in the African market where that needs to be filled urgently. So I started my career within the oil service firm, and while I was working with an oil service firm, they will bring their data experts all the way from the UK, from the US, and that really spurred my interest. That was the first time I was also going to be interfacing with something called data science, and these guys will write this programming codes, and do a lot of fantastic stuff for the organization. And that piqued my interest, and I wanted to learn. And I began my learning journey, started learning around 2006, post-university. And in 2017, we registered with the government, came up with four of us, and we co-founded the organization. And we just wanted to, we didn't even start it first as a for-profit. We just wanted to train people in the skills that we have gained. My colleague is a bioinformatician, so my co-partner, and he just wanted to share that programming skills. I was coming from a statistics, data analytics background. I just wanted to share that skill, how to use Excel, how to, that's how it all started. And light off. Um, that's what happens when you are interviewing in Nigerian. Eh?
The Lord is
But
helping us.
not to,
We're being helped.
but not to worry.
Yeah.
Life will be back just
Okay.
shortly. Mm. So that's how the journey began, and we registered, and it's been years of doing business now. For the deaf intake, um, it was very, I mean, it's a personal one for me. My roommate in the university is a deaf guy uh, named Henry. Very fantastic, very sociable, nice guy. And we're roommates. Fast forward post university, I went on to start building my career, got a job in the oil service firm, moved on to do my master's, moved on to do my PhD. But somehow the system was skewed against my roommate. He couldn't make any progress post the university. And simply because the quality of education offered him, the society not being inclusive enough for him to be able to pick up marketable skills, sellable skills, So unlike me, even if the university didn't offer me what I wanted, I had um, I had so much opportunity with open learning, to leverage on YouTube, to leverage on so many other platforms to be able to learn, but to pick up new skills. But that's different for my friend who is deaf. There are no many resources online that provide these high level skills for persons who are deaf. So for instance, tech, you don't see any platform providing Python programming for deaf people. So it means that the society is skewed against him, So whatever he was able to get from that basic education, which is not sufficient to be able to negotiate for today's kind of job, that puts him at a disadvantage, And when I saw him many years after, he was working as a cleaner, not really very, very impressed about that situation of his. Of course, there's dignity in labor, but for the kind of guy that I know my friend to be while we were in the university, if we had a very inclusive society, he had the capacity to be able to do more. He had the capacity to be able to negotiate from society more than he settled for. And returning from meeting him, I began to ask key questions. Why? So persons in the disability community do not have employable skills, and aside from not having employable skills, the society in itself do not think they are fit to do certain jobs. So even when they come into organizations to apply for jobs, they are rather given handouts, stipends to say thanks for coming, more like giving arms instead of giving opportunity to be able to meaningfully build a career. And that led us to start the Deaf Intake, which was a platform to be able to provide tech skills for deaf persons, and for the deaf community is double marginalized. I don't know how to describe that, but so if you see somebody on wheel, this person is disabled. If you see somebody blind, you can visibly say this person is blind. You see, for the deaf persons, it's different. Until they open their mouths to speak or you try to talk to them, you don't know who is deaf. So naturally, the society has no plan for them because the society don't interface with them that frequent.
Right.
So there are plans for the blind, there are plans for persons on wheel, but there are no plans you don't see serious plans for persons who are deaf. So government policies mandating offices to have ramps because of persons with wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
You see persons who are blind with guides, but persons who are deaf, no. Because such plans are not made. But there's a double marginalization. People don't readily see them. They are not very visible to be helped, but they are there in the society. And so we came up with the Deaf in Tech to provide that sellable skills. And that's what we've been doing since 2022. And we've provided training for very huge number of deaf persons already.
Right.
We've done over 1,000 currently.
Wow.
And yeah, both graduates and young kids. We're also training young deaf kids in tech, preparing them early for a career in tech.
That's wow. That's a significant amount of lives you've touched, particularly through this. And what's interesting is that you did say it is true. I think when I think about policies with regards to folks who are underrepresented, particularly with regards to disabilities, you do find that there are policies that are more leaning towards whether you're blind or you're lame, but I've never really had one that is geared towards people that are deaf, right? Now, one of my questions when I think we're having this conversation was, given where we are now, and I loved how you mentioned the way Data Lead Africa started was because you noticed that we were importing talent from foreign nations, and you thought, hey, why don't we just create a space where we actually breed this talent amongst us and then supply to the people that need it here within us, which is, I think, relatively cheaper. But one thing that stood out to me with regards to Deaf in Tech, what I was trying to understand is, in your opinion, what do you think, why should we care, right? What is the cost of not serving this group of people? What would that cost be to our communities, our nation, and maybe broadly Africa, right? What do you understand is the cost of not meeting the needs of these people for a community?
Quite a lot. First on it is that we will be perpetuating a cycle of poverty.
Right.
We'll be perpetuating a cycle of poverty. See, given somebody sellable skill is given the person the visa to navigate life, and to be able to earn, So if we don't do something for the underserved community, we will be perpetuating poverty. And when you perpetuate poverty, you are also increasing the conflict dynamics. You're also increasing the conflict dynamics within the continent. If you look recently, if you see the trend in Africa, you see protests, violent protests emerging all across different African countries. We saw the Gen Zs in Kenya. We're seeing what is happening in Nigeria. We're seeing Ghana. Last week, there was protests sprung up in Ghana. We've seen Nigeria. And so many African countries will begin to, the conflict dynamics is going to be overwhelming because I think there's a musician in Nigeria that I like to quote, not one of those mainstream, Portable. His name is Portable.
Yes.
Portable said something during this protest. He said, me, I no go protest too, meaning that I'm not going to join them in protest. Because in 2020, he was part of the protests. He said, this year, I'm not going to be part of the protest. And why? He said, now I am rich.
Wow.
Yeah. He said, now I don't make money. Say protest now for poor people. Yeah, in a way, that may look classist, but passing a very vibrant message. You see, the more we perpetuate poverty, the more we increase the conflict dynamics, within the continent. So if you look at the trend of conflicts in Nigeria, you will see it's higher where illiteracy is at its peak, where we have more out of school children. So you see the banditry, you see the terrorism, you see the gangsterism, you see different conflict dynamics emerging because people cannot meaningfully feed themselves. The disability community also, once we don't cater for that underserved community, we're also creating a system where these people pass on poverty from generation to generation and pass on people who can fuel more conflict, okay, from generation to generation. So we need to break that circle, and two, because Africa is the resource for the whole world. We're the resource for the world. Well, what do I mean by that? The biggest resource in the 21st century is really not crude oil, it's people. It's not crude oil, it's not gold, it's people. It's intelligent people that can make things happen. And if you look at our population in Africa, if you look at the population economy, you're also saying that the median age in Nigeria, for instance, is about 18. You're saying that 50% of the population are 18 downward, okay? Meaning that we have a very large young population that can work, that can be exported anywhere, compared to other continents where their population is decreasing, okay? That's not what's happening in Africa. We have that viable population. So we are the resource that the whole world is waiting for, right. Okay? And so if that resource is well-skilled, it is for the betterment of the whole world. And if that resource is also not well-skilled, it's a problem for the whole world. So illegal migration, where people now begin to move into other countries trying to earn a living in whatever way that they can get to do this, So, but if they are well skilled and they can contribute to the global economy, that's an advantage, and that's why we must do something to the underserved communities.
Right. I think that's so critical. You mentioned something that was going to lead into my next conversation, right? Which is, it is true, right? By 2050, there's going to be one in four people one of them is going to be African, right? So we're looking at a continent that is going to host a reservoir of the largest. I mean, it might be talent, or it might just be people who are underskilled, right? So we're at this midpoint where we're trying to figure out, is it going to be a burden or is it going to be a blessing, right? And I think one thing that I would like to talk about now is, especially, so your work has been Data Lead Africa, now Deaf in Tech, right? So we are in this technological field, we are entering this fourth industrial revolution, right? Or we're already in it at this point. Exactly. What can you, in your experience, give me a context of how that has shown itself in Nigeria, and sort of like, how have we made room, or how have we not made room in sort of like accommodating, whether it's training people, developing technical skills? What does that look like in your experience leading Data Lead Africa, as well as interacting on ground with the people themselves?
So if you look currently in the global tech resources, in terms of global tech human resource, you will find Asians, India leading, okay? And you will see Nigeria as another huge community on the horizon. Okay? But it's something we have to also invest in much more. And that's why I'm very happy with what this current administration is doing with what they call the 3MTT. Right. So this is an initiative of the current minister, Bosun Tijani. Of course, Bosun is from this. This was what he was doing before he became part of the politics. So it's natural to see him trying to reproduce this. So what is the goal? Produce 3 million technically skilled Nigerians, and how is it going about it is creating tech hubs all over the 36 states of the country where people are being trained in different tech skills, and they're doing this for free. I think they're currently in the second cohort for that program. It's still a program in its nascent stage, but just imagine in the next 5 years that Nigeria is able to ship 3 million people into the global market as tech-skilled persons in cybersecurity, in data science, in different area of tech. That's going to be huge it's going to be huge for Nigeria, for our economy, and that's going to be a huge contribution to the global economy. But why this is happening, one thing I wished happened differently is to carry the disability community along, okay, for the program to be more inclusive. But you see, it's still boils down to the culture that we have that is still not very inclusive. We're not a very inclusive people yet. So our systems, just caters for the majority. Our politics caters for the majority. Our policies caters for the majority. We don't think about the underserved communities. So I want to see the 3MTT with specific goals for the disability communities, having 3MTT hubs catering for the deaf community, 3MTT hubs catering for the blind communities, because for tech, you can design tech, you design tech product based on your sentiments. You understand? So that's why when you look at some of our apps, some of our technological products, it speaks about the designer.
Yes.
The choice of colors. You will see, you interact with some tool, you just know that the people behind this tool are just men. Their choice of colors, where they've put the buttons, the complications and complexity around finding, you just know that this was probably done by a man. It wasn't, it didn't think that some other persons will, didn't consider other perspective, even in his choice of colors, okay? The same thing, when we don't carry the disability community along, we'll keep designing for them what is not useful to them.
Yeah.
So we need more skilled, tech-skilled persons from this community. It helps improve our tech ecosystem in terms of products and processes. Okay, and and that's why I think the 3MTT, which Nigeria is doing very well on, to include the disability community much more.
Right. I love that you mentioned that. Also, I think one thing that I am learning, I think we've all learned, right, is when you include a diverse number of voices, you end up with solutions or products that end up actually serving the broader majority, only because now they integrate this very small nuances. They're like, oh, okay, that also yes, I can hear, but this actually feels great to use, right? Just because somebody within maybe that deaf community built it to accommodate them, but you find that it also serves another community, right? So I think yes, I think we are with this 3MTT, I think we are at a unique position where we can rebuild or start building policies or infrastructure, right, that can include more underrepresented communities. And while you were speaking, you talked about how right now the game is not so much about the tool, right? But it's more about the people, like the people behind the tool, the people who are managing,
Yes.
who are going to build with it, who are going to create with it. It's no more about like necessarily your monopoly on accessing skills or tools, but it's like how you think and how you can create with that. And that's why, having a huge population like Africa has is so critical. However, I'm still nervous about our lack of or deficiency in infrastructure, right? So um, from I mean history, we missed this first revolution, we missed the second one, colonization and things of that nature. The third one rolls about. We have been distracted with whether political issues or poverty and things of that nature. So we missed that as well. And that was also due to poor infrastructure. In your opinion, trying to build, of course, this reservoir of talent, right? I do think we're going to need some infrastructure alongside it. Would you say that we run the same risk because of our lack of infrastructure? Would you say that our lack of infrastructure or relatively less infrastructure puts us at the same risk of missing out on this industrial revolution as we have in the past?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. Yes, so absolutely. For tech, you need a lot of investment in infrastructure, a lot of investment in infrastructure. Even though learning has been democratized, but application of the knowledge has not been democratized. You understand? So while you can sit in your community in Nsukka and learn tech, you need to you need someone's platform to be able to apply that skill. That platform could be remote, but somebody built it. So organizations are offering remote job opportunities, but we don't own them. We don't own those infrastructure. So while learning tech has been democratized, applying that skill to earn has not been democratized, meaning that the big tech still are not here. This is not where they are. The Silicon Valley is not yet here. Even though they employ people remotely in Nsukka village, in Orandamoda and Zamfara state, if you have the skills, but we don't have that infrastructure. And that's why Africa must really invest in infrastructure. I mean, we are long overdue for that level of investment. And the more we're wasting time, the more the skill gap is widening, and I don't know why. I really love what the current Minister of ICT is doing. Maybe largely because he's coming from. This is the first time I think we're having a Minister of ICT in Nigeria who is from the tech ecosystem. You understand? We've always had more career politicians, in that position. I think the young man is young. The young man came in, he understood the problem. And the problem, two problems. You need to build the people and you need to invest in infrastructure. Okay. And they're starting very small, considering the much deficit that we have. It will almost look as if nothing is done. The data in Nigeria, from Nigeria, if you're watching on the news, you will see during the protest that one of the hubs in Kano was looted.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that was a huge investment of this. Very huge investment that they did to be able to not just train, but to provide a platform for people to try out their skills. in that sense. And these they're doing almost across all of the region. That's one. Two, but beyond what government is doing, for me, which is in an ideal society, that's not what government should be. I mean, you should stimulate the private sector to do this, Right. I want to see more private sector involvement in building this critical infrastructure for Africa as a continent. Okay, so what we're saying is, if you look at data, for instance, you will find that the data in Nigeria, from Nigeria, is not even hosted here in Nigeria. So the hosting platform that is hosting that data is not here. It's somewhere outside of this country. So we need to invest in large data farms. We need to begin to see private sector coming to invest in data farms, where if for any reason there is a global, I think there was sometimes this year, I think there was a destruction of the undersea cables.
Yeah.
We saw how that affected a lot of flow of data in Africa. It's that simple. Why? Because every time you make a request, your HTTP, you are actually you are making a request on something that is somewhere in a particular server. And if that server is not hosted within your country, it makes it, so if there's any global IT crisis, which are very possible, the next global war will be tech-driven and bio-driven. So if there is any of such, it just means that we are disadvantaged. So we need to begin to invest in this kind of infrastructure, stimulating the private sector to invest in this. Not just build a cement producing company, yam processing company. We need to invest in critical tech infrastructure. Like a data farm. That's something that is urgently needed.
Yeah. That's perfect, because I think one of the questions I was going to lead into is data, but I was going to go more in depth into how you have, because I do understand for the Deaf in Tech program, that is something that your company has taken on as a personal initiative. So this is where we have a private organization that's actually doing that investment into the society. So I want to understand, when we talk about the fact that we don't necessarily host data within our geographical location in Nigeria, this presents issues of cost. This presents issues of internet access and things of that nature, right? So how have you and how are you working around this challenges as a company residing in Nigeria and providing services to people within that nation as well?
Yeah, so for us at our own level of doing business, one major data need that we have is even population data. Okay, that very basic, just population data. Okay, in terms of population data, how many persons of disability do we have in the country? We don't have that data. So what are we currently doing at Data Lead Africa is trying to do to map the community, because you can't intervene without having the right data to know how to plan. Yeah. How many deaf persons do we have in Nigeria? What is the population growth? What will be the trend in population growth for persons in the next 5-10 years? Okay, so that's something we are investing in now, trying to do that survey. So we're currently doing the survey. We're starting with Abuja, trying to, how many deaf persons are in Abuja? Where do they live? Where do they live? Where's the clustering where we have more, so that the community can be better served. That's what we are investing in currently in Dating with Africa.
That's great, because I remember when we had a first conversation, you said something, and I'm going to let you talk about it. I don't want to add to it because I don't know enough, right? But you mentioned something about data silos. And this leads into conversations when we're talking about data colonization with regards to, as you're building AI or if you're investing in that sort of technology, data is a huge component of that, right? But then we do have that problem of data silos, or even the fact that we don't have that data. Can you speak more to what that looks like in a country like Nigeria, where we have these different fragments of information?
Yeah. Okay. So data in Nigeria is still very fragmented. Okay. So, for instance, you want to get a driver's license, your data is collected. You want to go to open a bank account, your data is collected. You go to immigration, your data is collected. You want to go to the hospital, a fresh data of yours is collected. So we have this one person with multiple data entered with different organizations, with different agencies of government. Okay, and which brings a huge problem. The first problem is usage of that data. Because the police does not have the access to the data collected by the bank. The bank does not have the access to the data collected by road safety. Road safety does not have access to the data collected by immigration. So it does not allow for proper coordination and usage. And so I know about 4 years ago now, the government set up a committee to look at data integration. Not much as, again, thank you for interviewing me in Nigeria. But not to worry about, like to be back shortly. Yeah. Okay. But so you have usage problem. You have usage problem. But we need that integration of different level of data collected from different agencies in a way that if I want to open a bank account, all you need is my ID. Once you have my ID, you have my complete details.
Right.
So you have my complete details. If I want to process my passport, all you need is my ID. Once you have it, you have all of my details. If you have a police case and you log in at the police station, you should have all of my ID so that the police can effectively put in whatever is the police report they want. It's so it allows for proper coordination, but that's not currently what we're having. But it's a journey. I think that's part of the reason the NIMC in Nigeria was set up to also look at all of this identity management, okay, which is something we have to also look at there. Then you look at that vis-a-vis even our population data, and the politics of data. Of course, there's the politics of data also. Nigeria is said to be over 400 million people, and sometimes you just want, where are they?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm driving up north and I'm driving kilometers of empty land. Yeah. But you see, data integration will just naturally solve some of these, but the politics of data also plays a very significant role. So these some of the, for instance, population data is a foundational data on which economic activities are, so if that's faulty, there's a problem. But integrating all of our data will help just not naturally solve that. You understand? For instance, there's no need going to do a head count like a census. If from our hospitals, when children are given birth to, there is a proper birth record system that integrates into the population, we will be able to see birth rate, population, all of that will be just naturally populate itself. So data in silos creates a lot of problem for economic planning. It creates a lot of problem. It creates a lot of problem even for security coordination. But it's something as a continent we have to begin to look at.
And if I just might add one more question, just to come back to what you said about Data Lead Africa and what you're doing in Abuja right now, would you say that that room for partnership has availed itself? Like, would you say that you're finding in doing the work, there's possible people you can collaborate with to either make it easier or to make what you collect meaningful, not just to your, not just to Data Lead Africa, but to any other entity, organization, or even the government that might be interested?
Yes. So for us at Data Lead Africa, we've always been very open to partnership. Even the Deaf in Tech has been alongside other partners. Makato Foundation, we're part of what we've done. Late last year, we built the DeafLearn, a learning platform for the deaf community, because there are no digital learning platform for deaf people to learn tech. So we built the DeafLearn, something like Udemy, where the deaf people can just go learn remotely and learn in the natural language that they understand, sign language. That was we worked alongside Makato Foundation to be able to produce that. So we're working with a lot of partners. We're working with GIZ. If you look at the underserved community, even bringing them to learn, we have to we pay them stipends to be able to be in class. Okay, because what it means is that once somebody is the underserved community, even to transport themselves to class is a whole huge problem. And that was sought by our partners, GIZ, who try to see how these people can always be in class by paying them directly their transport stipends daily, which is a huge motivation to get them to be in class.
I think that's beautiful. There's so many nuggets in this conversation that we've had. I think one thing I want to maybe crown our conversation with, and maybe leave it for next time, is when you look at Nigeria, and when maybe these are like final parting words, right? But when you look at Nigeria, when you look at Africa, where we are right now, apparently 2030, there's supposed to be trillions of dollars added to the GDP. What would you say, and I think you've already touched on this, but just to emphasize it just a little bit more, what would you say is most critical for us to, what do we have to do to position ourselves this year, next year, that is super critical to align ourselves with that influx of revenue from either artificial intelligence or biotech or things of that nature, or to align ourselves with that population in 2050 that is going to help the world rather be a burden to the world? What is one or two things that you think are absolutely critical to have making that happen?
Yeah, so for me, it's two. We need to invest in the human resource. So whatever can skill up Africa, we need to invest in that. Two, we need to invest in critical infrastructure. One, internet. Internet speed in so many African countries are still way, way below. So we need to invest in that. We can't come to the global village without the right vehicle to be able to be in the village.
Right.
And internet is the first thing you need. We need to invest in power. Just within the space of this interview, I've got 2 power outages. We need to invest in power. You know, we need to invest in power. We need to invest in internet. And if there has been any criticism, even of the current admin, Bosun Tijani, it's been that we don't have the infrastructure for some of the lofty ideas he's coming up with.
Right.
So the internet is the power, which are very critical. And if you go all across African countries, you hardly can take out 10 that have fully solved power problem, and that have fully solved internet access problem. You know, this is an infrastructure we need to invest in coming years to be able to fully participate in the global tech ecosystem.
All right, perfect. I absolutely agree. And I think the more we talk about it, I think the more organizations like yourself, and also like you mentioned, the minister and other ministries, because I know recently I believe is the Minister of Research and Education in Egypt. I might be wrong, right? But they invested about $200 million into the educational system, into the infrastructure. So I think more people are waking up to the idea that, you know, in order to break the cycle of poverty that we have endured for more than a century right now, investing again in our people, investing again in our infrastructure for ourselves is critical. So I'm so grateful for your time. I'm so thankful for the conversation we had today. I've personally learned a lot, and I hope that anyone who participates in this will learn a lot. And particularly, one thing I do want to say is also, I truly appreciate the work Data Lead Africa is working in, and also for the fact that not just are you a business in of yourselves, but to be bringing alongside an underrepresented community like the deaf community and integrating them so that they're not left behind. That's what happens when, you know, revolutions come around or this mass changes happen, and then you end up leaving a huge subset of people, and then that has repercussions in the future. But for the fact that you have taken it on as a mission, the goal is to make sure that other organizations, other private institutions themselves also participate in making sure that no community, whether deaf or blind or lame, are left behind as we move forward. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I'm grateful to NEPA for at least bringing back the lights. So grateful. All right. So I'm going to call it again a day, and hopefully one day soon we have another opportunity to talk about something else, and there's more that has happened in Nigeria to bring us back to the table. All right.
Yes, thank you, Genevieve. Really nice having you. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, bye.